What I wanted to talk about today is communication. Now, here's the thing. We all think that we are master communicators. Like, I know how to speak on how I feel. If I feel a certain type of way, I know how to articulate it in a way. But that's not the type of communication that I wanted to talk about. What I want to talk about is communication, adaptation, and how to check yourself. Last night, I was talking to my son. He graduates next month, and he's an honor student. I mean, he's just a great kid. And I was talking to him about just life in general. And I was trying to explain to him certain things. But as I'm talking to him, I stopped myself because I started thinking, I'm telling him these things because I love him. But if I'm not careful, he might be perceiving these things as it's coming down on him. So I stopped myself right in that moment, rewinded, and went another course. You see, when you have multiple kids, you have to be fluent in multiple languages. You have to be fluent in multiple languages because that same conversation that I was saying with him, I could have had with my other son, and it would have been perfectly fine. My youngest, I can come to him and just be like, hey man, what you doing, man? That's crazy. And it's nothing. But I can't speak to my daughter that way because she's more emotional. So if I'm upset with her, all I got to do is just come in there and stare at her. She's going to understand. But if I go to my youngest son and I come to him and I stare at him, he's going to be like, what? Because that's not going to resonate with him. I got to say some stuff to him. So when we talk about communication, we forget to include the perception of the next person. All things are not created equal. Once you say something to someone, you can't control how they perceive it. It is your job to understand how to communicate to that person. I talked about yesterday going into these other countries. This is an American thing to show up in a foreign land and then complain that people don't speak English. You are in their country and you complain that people don't speak English. Now, you might find some people that speak English, broken English, whatever, but you're upset because you feel like because I showed up in this country, you guys got to learn how to deal with me. Y'all should already be ready. And a lot of times we go into these conversations the same type of way. In a relationship, it is your job to learn how to effectively communicate. And the problem in many relationships is when you're not willing to do that. When you're the type of person that's like, hey, I said what I said. That's what I meant. Yeah, this, that, and the other. And the crazy thing is you will go on and tell other people just how great of a communicator you are. But what you think is good, the perception is totally bad because you have not adapted to the next person. When I speak to my kids, it's the same message. It's just a different way of conveying it. They know when I'm saying something, it's just a different way to convey it. And when you are a great communicator, you understand that. And see, a lot of times, this is another thing that gets you wrapped up is the comparison. You ever had someone when, especially for a guy, you go in the gym and they like, hey, how much you bench? And then you're like, oh man, I'm repping, 365. And they're like, for real? I'm at 405. How much you squatting? On a good day, I probably can get you 475. Oh, for real? I'm at 505, right? And then you start being like, are you trying to one up me? Like you comparing yourself to me? That comparison is oh my gosh, it's annoying. Now that's one form of it. But here's another form of it that many of us fall victim to. My kids, when I'm talking to them, sometimes if I'm not careful, I'm talking to them in a comparison spirit and it's masked in love. See, I can tell my son, hey, listen, you got to be careful for X, Y, and Z, and this, that, and the other, right? But what I'm doing is I'm speaking from my experience, but my experience might not be your experience. So what I'm really doing is I'm transferring my fears onto you. And when you go to college, hey man, this, that, and that. So now all of my fears comings in, I'm projecting them onto you and it's masked in love because it's comparison. Yes, I'm aware of certain things that you might go through, but me putting my fear on you might be blocking what God has for you because maybe God is sending a situation your way in order for you to just see how strong you are, in order for your faith to kick in, your faith in God, because you have to be in this situation in order for God to talk to you. That's why, and I used to have this conversation with my grandmother all the time. I used to say, you love them to a fault. And you know what that looks like? Every time, I need $20, I'm giving it to you. Every time I need this, I'm giving it to you. I'm giving it to you. But at the end of the day, you got to start being like, maybe I'm blocking what God got for you. Because right now, you don't know what it's like to be hungry because there's always food available. You're not in a rush to go get a job with benefits because I'm always here to supply your need. But maybe God needs you to get up out there and not have for you to rely on him to get you to your next level. But the comparison would be like, hey, I know how that feels. That's the worst thing. My neighbor, her husband is in the hospice and I help her out daily because he was battling, dementia. And, that's when my grandfather battled. So sometimes she would, call me late at night and she'd say, hey, I'm sorry to wake you. Can you help me get him up? He's filled. And I jump up and I do it. And I do it because of my grandfather. So I enjoy helping because my grandfather's not here no more. But here's the thing. Yesterday we were talking because he's not doing good. And we were talking and she was telling me about certain things. And I found myself saying, hey, I know exactly what you went through because of what my grandfather, and I stopped myself and I apologized to her. And I said, I'm sorry because I'm doing something that I hate. I can empathize with what you're going through. I can sympathize with what you're going through, but I can't tell you I know what you're going through. See, and that's the thing. A lot of times when something's happening, we are so quick to say, I know exactly what you're going through. Man, I know that pain. But you don't know my pain. When my grandparents passed, and I get emotional, right? But when my grandparents passed, for some people, they say, hey, I know what you're going through. I lost my grandmother. But for me, my grandmother was like my second mom, and she loved me to no avail. And everybody that know me in real life know that they know that relationship. My grandfather, he loved me, and I just always wanted to make him proud. So when I say, man, I lost my grandfather, and somebody says, hey, I know what you went through. No, you don't, because you don't know that relationship. But you can empathize and you can sympathize. See, and that's the right form of communication. That's the message of this video right here. Communication. You can think that you are a master communicator, but if you don't know how to communicate to individuals, you are not a great communicator. If you don't know how not to take your personal fears and what you have went through in life and push them on someone else, you're not a great communicator. I love to use my kids as an example. I checked myself last night because what I thought I was saying to my son was being helpful. I had to stop and be like, I'm putting my fears on him. And now he might have some fears that he never had. So I had to switch it and be like, you know what? Let me put my ego aside. Simple. It's really that simple. If you are in a relationship, it doesn't matter, in your brain, when you said something, what you meant. It doesn't matter what you up here and what came out of here, what you meant. It's how the next person perceived it. And if you can't properly articulate what you meant. See, if I tell you that you offended me, it is not your job to convince me that you didn't. You did. I'm offended. Now, what you can do is explain that was not my intentions. I am totally sorry. But a sorry is not an explanation. Don't tell me you sorry because. Don't tell me you sorry because that's not an apology. That's just an explanation. Anyways, man, I'll go on a whole nother tangent, man. But I hope y'all have a blessed Saturday.